What if your path to success started with just $200 in your pocket and led to managing nearly $1 billion in assets? Now, in this episode, we're going to dive deep into how resilience, smart strategies, and a consultative mindset can fuel explosive, sustainable growth in any tough economy.
Welcome to Fortify Live with your host, Saeks.
Now, joining me today is Paul Carroll. He's the founder and CEO of Avion Wealth, a firm that's now managing about $850 million in assets. Now, he was born in Dublin. He arrived in the U.S. at 17 with limited resources. He served in the Air Force and launched Avion in 2005. Now, throughout turbulent markets, he's being able to make bold decisions and huge success. Please welcome Paul Carroll to the show. Paul, thank you for joining us on Fortify Live.
Ford, it's an honor. Thank you so much for having me today.
Now, full disclosure, Paul and I know each other. We're in EO together. We're in EO Forum. But we've always loved working together in Mastermind. So I said, you know what, he'd be a great guest. So we're live right now on Facebook and LinkedIn and YouTube and a few other places. And the audio track from this episode also becomes the Business Growth Show podcast. So, Paul, why don't you share something about your background that led you to be the leader that you are today?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I think there's no one thing. Maybe I should just start at the beginning. As you noted, I was born in Dublin, Ireland. I lived there actually till I was about 5. My parents moved to London, England, got divorced, and my mother took us up to Manchester, England. And the weather's great in Manchester, England, he says sarcastically. After coming to the United States at 15 on a vacation to visit some relatives, I decided I'm coming back. And I arrived in Dallas, Texas at 17 in the fall of 1979 with $200, a toothbrush, and no idea what I was doing. But at that age, it really doesn't matter now, does it? So before too long, I ran out of airspeed altitude ideas and enlisted in the Air Force as an aircraft electrician as a means to pay for my undergraduate education. While I was in the Air Force, I went through the University of Maryland full-time, graduated summa cum laude with a 4.0, which doesn't mean I was the smartest in the room. It does mean I was the most motivated because I didn't want a career in the military. I got out of the Air Force and graduated pretty close together and didn't know what to do next. So I did what you do when you don't know what to do next. I went to graduate school. Texas A&M made an offer I couldn't refuse, so I didn't. And I got my master's in finance from Texas A&M. When I got out of A&M, I ended up working for a company called Smith Barney. They've been merged into a number of other firms since then, but it was dialing for dollars. It was basically an old school bucket shop is what I would call it, and I did not enjoy that. I did not enjoy the work, the squawk box where you have professionals telling you what to believe and what to say. So disillusioned and without coaching, which is why coaching is so important to me now with my team, I decided to do a career change. And a good friend of mine told me, hey, there's a shortage of pilots. Let's go learn how to fly. Like you could do that on the weekend. So 7 jobs and 7,000 hours later, I ended up getting hired by Continental Airlines. And finally, life was good. I was enjoying my career, enjoying my growth, enjoying my position. Till September 11th happened. September 11th, as you know, blew a hole in the heart of America, blew a hole in the side of Continental Airlines, and it blew a big hole in my career. I was subsequently moved to Houston. And then shortly after that, I actually put on notice that I was going to be furloughed. That got my attention. The airline business is a lottery business. It's all about your date of hire. Nothing else matters. And being entrepreneurial, like myself, and maybe a lot of your audience, there's nothing I hated more than having no self-determination, no self-control. So I'd hear a lot of people talk about how badly they were being treated, how they can get a better job elsewhere. And I always used to think to myself, if you're so good, prove it. And one day, I think I heard it one too many times and decided I would start a business. And after a little bit of due diligence, I really had a passion for wealth management. I'm fascinated by the topics. I like taking care of people. So I started Avion Wealth in 2005. We're right now celebrating our 20th anniversary. I'm very excited about it. The model we decided, though, was not going to be sales-oriented. It was going to be built along the lines of a CPA firm or a law firm. using an I'm going to restart, adopting a consultative approach.
It's okay, everybody. Just for the record, we are live. Then nothing gets edited out. So you own the consultative approach. We're good. We're on track. Keep going.
Adopting a consultative approach, working with a team of experts to help our clients not only protect their wealth, but also mitigate their taxes, take care of their heirs, protect their assets from being unjustly taken, and maximize the impact of charitable planning if that's important to them. And anyone who's a business owner knows that there's a lot of changing the dials and seeing what works. It wasn't an overnight success, but within a couple, 3 years, it took off and it was off to the races. Now, 20 years later, I'm very proud. I'm proud of what we've built. I'm super proud of the team we've put together. I like to think of it as a self-managing company. We've got a fantastic reputation. And though my peers at the airline are now retiring, I have no intention of slowing down anytime soon. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded for you.
No, this is great. So I want to lean into a little bit about leadership, okay? You and I, again, we're EO Forum members, so we've networked together. We've known each other. We've gone on trips together. But one of the things I've always appreciated about you is your leadership perspective. And for those of you listening, what we're talking about here is being open-minded, coachable, a critical thinker, adaptive, having a success library. So, the people who scare me the most, Paul, are the ones who think they know everything, but they don't know what they don't know, right? They're closed-minded. They don't understand it. And I know with you, as you've grown this great team that you say, typically runs itself, it's because you've really done a great job of setting clear expectations and hiring the right people. But what are some leadership lessons that you've learned now in your, tenure of growth in multiple businesses and working with, big brands around the world too? What are some leadership lessons or something that you've had to learn and really think are important to success?
Oh my goodness. Well, as you know, I've written a book, A Players with Intent, and I talk about some of the key leadership lessons that I've learned. I'd say the most important lesson, certainly the first chapter in the book talks about this, is opening a book and reading. Yeah, I talk to my team all the time about just 10 pages a day, just 5 pages a day, 1 page a day. Trust me, if you just make that your habit, on the days when you got the time and the bandwidth, you'll read more. It's a habit pattern. And I basically didn't know what I was doing when I started the business. I knew the basics of finance. I knew how to build a basic asset allocation, but I didn't know a whole lot else. I certainly knew nothing about running a business. I got my graduate education from books, and I think that would be the number one takeaway that I would give to anybody is go in with an attitude of curiosity and an understanding that you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, I think it's really important to be open-minded. I mean, I'm an opening keynote speaker, so I speak at a lot of conferences around the globe. I interview a lot of franchise brands and franchise owners and private equity group people and, wealth managers like you. And one thing I always have learned from those that are successful, and certainly in my life, is having that success library and having one accessible to your team. And it can have things not necessarily related to the business. Maybe it's on parenting or how to have a positive mindset. It doesn't have to be all business, but that ability to be curious and open-minded, I think, is really important. I mean, Carol Dweck is famous for her book Mindset, right? Which is with mindset addresses everything. If you don't have your mindset dialed in, all the strategies and tactics in the world aren't going to help you. And even in my keynotes, I always start with mindset. No matter what topic they hire me on, whether it's AI or business growth or local marketing, I always start with the mindset piece, because if you don't get that fixed, it doesn't matter. It's kind of like in leadership. And I know you and I have talked about this, that an organization has to have their culture, then their leadership, then management, then team building. They have to have systems in place for communication. And then they have to know, how are they going to adapt during change? And what are your thoughts on that?
Well, adapting during change is an interesting question. The challenge, of course, is not continuing what worked before. In fact, when we had been in business for 3 years, in 2008, we were slapped down by the Great Recession. The market collapsed. The Lehman Brothers went out of business. The mortgage industry brought literally the global economy down. And one of the things that happened during that period is Every single airline in the United States, except Southwest and Continental Airlines, went into bankruptcy. And they went into bankruptcy to shut down their pension plans. Continental didn't go into bankruptcy because they had great leadership relationships. The union agreed to unilaterally freeze their pension, and Southwest didn't even have a pension. Well, that was our business model, was working with these guys till they retired and then taking over their pension. So we had to do a very rapid pivot. And in service of that pivot, I wrote what turned out to be my greatest failure, and I say that quite seriously. I wrote a book called Platform for Wealth for the Oil Executives, and we were growing like a weed, but it turned out we were growing with everybody but oil professionals, energy professionals, which in South Houston is hard to do.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized that our success was not focusing on the engineers and the employees of these big firms, but on the C-suite executives. And so the only energy employees that we actually had at the firm were those C-suite executives. If you're going to mess it up, it's a good way to do it. But a willingness to pivot, even if you get it wrong, you can get it right. If that makes any sense whatsoever. Just you got to do something and play it out. And if it's not working, figure it out, make the adjustment. We made a mistake, and despite that, we continued to grow because we did something and we stuck to it.
Yeah, I think it's really important, fail fast, forget the mistake, learn the lesson. How can you adapt and be curious? And I think in any business, Gino Wickman's famous for EOS and the rocket fuel book and traction. And those methodologies and those systems have been taught for years and will continue to get taught in various formats. But let's shift a little bit into, let's say you've got your mindset dialed in. For building a business, I always ask people, what's their cost to acquire a customer and what methods are they using? Now, I know you're famous because your firm thrives on referrals. Now, obviously, for wealth management, for the level that you're going at, it's not going to be a Google ad. It's going to be their sphere of influence, right? Their universe of the people who congregate. So what are some things that you do to build those relationships and thrive on referrals, and the secret to turning, client-first consulting into growth?
Well, that's a great question for it. I'll tell you what doesn't work, and that's almost everything. I've spent so much money over the years with marketing professionals and sales professionals and got nothing out of that. We have recently dipped our toes into some digital marketing, which is actually beginning to work. But our real bread and butter, every good firm that does a good job should get referrals from their clients.
I agree.
The real trick for a firm like us is to be getting referrals not only from clients, but from those professionals that refer a steady stream of new clients. And those are hard to get. Everyone knows that's what you want to do. We really had to establish a level of credibility and trust with these centers of influence before they would start feeding us the clients versus some other professional. So really, it was all about becoming the expert, writing the books, being on our video blog, talking to people like you, and getting known for a level of expertise that is superlative so that these professionals were not embarrassed to introduce you to their clients. And I think along with that, there needs to be a core understanding that something really bothers me is when I get an email and in the foot where the name and address is, it says, a referral is the best compliment. And it annoys me because people don't refer people for you. They refer people because they believe in what you do and they feel it would be of value for their friends. And that is my mindset. I'm here to do something so well that people want to refer me because they care about their friends and they genuinely believe that I would add value to their friend's life and certainly not embarrass them.
Well, it's something I say too, which is deals do not happen before dialogue. And people don't get hired, at least me, as a keynote speaker. I'm in the Hall of Fame, one of only 200 people in the Hall of Fame for keynote speaking. I'm not going to get hired at my fees. You can Google my fees. They're not going to hire me if they haven't seen me, listened to me, read one of my books, or someone had referred me that's done that. So in any business size, whether you're a solo entrepreneur, whether you're B2B, B2C, whether you're in wealth management, you need to look at your cost to acquire a customer, what's your conversion rate, and what's the lifetime value of that client. And going back to something that Paul just shared, which is centers of influence. So you have your customers or your clients. That's like the bullseye. That's in the center. But as you go out of the ring, it's who are the centers of influence? Who else reaches your ideal prospect? Who else has a relationship with people that refer? And what I do to build my centers of influence is I go to those particular people once I've identified, and I say, I meet with CEOs all the time. What's your ideal client? And once I identify a good lead for you, how would you like me to introduce them to you? Would you like me to send an email? Would you like me to share your phone number? Should I hand out your business card? What would you like me to say? And so I actually work with my centers of influence to build that relationship where I'm being of service to them first. I'm not asking them to send me business. I'm actually saying, look, I have these pool of people. I work with these people a lot. I'd love to be able to send you business. Now, obviously, if they're reputable, I don't want to refer people, just like they're not going to refer you if they're not reputable. But I always come from a be of service mindset first, deliver the value first, because the business will come. So one of the action steps from this episode, everybody, is to look at your business, step back, maybe send an email to everybody on your team and say, what are the top 25 places that we should be getting business from? And it doesn't matter whether you're a retailer, wholesaler, distributor, or an expert or importer, or where you fit in the scale of business. There are always people that can send you business, and you have to be there. Like for tonight, I'm going to be going to one of the Wichita Independent Business Association meetings. Now, I'm not there to solicit or sell, but being visible, just showing up. They have to see you. Out of sight as out of mind. So if you want to be relevant, you have to be this. The same reason why I asked Paul to be on the show. One, I knew he'd be a great guest and he'd share some great insights. He's a contrarian. He doesn't just take something at face value. He has a very critical thinking mind that evaluates the choice. And I think that that's a lesson that everybody can learn. I want you to participate in this podcast, but I'm totally okay if you disagree. You can leave whatever platform you're on. You can put notes in the comments and we'll get back to you. But it really comes down to, how do you find those centers of influence, build the relationship first, ask them who's your ideal client, how to introduce them, and then continue to build those relationships through nurturing, and you'll get plenty of business. Don't you think?
Absolutely. And you couldn't have said it better. I'm constantly working with the young professionals. Hey, get out there. Never Eat Alone. The name of a great book.
Yeah, I actually went to dinner with him. Troy, I have it sitting here somewhere, but yeah, he actually invited me to dinner. This is funny. Keep telling the story while I'm looking for the book. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I take it both internally and externally. If I can't be with a client, I'm with a COI. If I'm not with a COI, I'm with a team member. I'm coaching and mentoring and inspiring. Never eat alone. Never lose an opportunity to get out there and connect with people. And connecting is not the same as selling.
Correct.
And never lose an opportunity to provide a service. And it's interesting. Right now, Boeing, as you know, is getting awful press, is running into awful troubles. And a lot of this comes from the merger of Boeing and McDonnell Douglas. Boeing was an engineering-led firm that made world-class airplanes. And it was in competition with another engineering-led firm called Airbus that makes world-class airplanes. And when McDonnell Douglas merged, they took their eye off the ball and became focused on stock buybacks, on sending money to the shareholders, on financial engineering, and they got behind the power curve. Now they're having a very difficult time getting back on the front side of the power curve. They're having accidents, they're getting bad press, and it will literally take decades for them to recover from the very expensive lesson of stick to what you do it well, the sales will follow.
Yeah, I think I know for me, I had a sporting goods company in the 80s and 90s, and I grew up to 140 employees, and we were doing $50 million in sales. And, I thought I really knew a lot. And so as an entrepreneur, I went to diversify. Well, if I'm really good in this, let's diversify. And I learned a word that I don't know if I made it up or not, but it wasn't diversification. It was diversification. Like what I worked in one industry, even though it gave me a solid foundation, one digit out of the combination doesn't unlock the success. So, yes, it's important to expand and grow and diversify, but sometimes it can be your downfall if you're not focused on what really making the main thing the main thing.
Oh, that's absolutely. And we had in the 70s and 80s these conglomerates that did a little bit of everything, and they underperformed and finally were broken up. But one of the biggest areas of diversification is be careful not to diversify your target market. It is so tempting to say, if I double my target market, I double my opportunity. But the truth is you don't. You cut it in half. And that's because if you focus, as we do, on one or two core groups, and we focus with successful business leaders, and of course we have a historical focus with the airline, that's who we focus on. That's our specialty. Those people want to work with people that know them. So they're not interested in the jack of all trades. In fact, nobody's interested in the jack of all trades. There's plenty of niches out there, but do not diversify your niche. It's very dangerous.
So what's a mistake or lesson that really taught you more than any success? What's something that you've overcome? Now, full disclosure, everybody, he does not know what questions I'm asking. He can say pass on any of these questions. So I'm just curious, what is something that you did that you had to learn the hard way that you'll never do again? I know there's plenty to pick from.
There's plenty to pick from, and some of them there's no way I would tell you on live, but some of them. But I think a really important one from the context of running this business, 2005 is when I started it. September 11 was 2001. I mean, I spent 3-4 years of paralysis by analysis, of trying to figure out how I was going to make this thing work. And you don't know. And you can already be in business too. There is a point where you just have to jump and flap real fast. You can't keep looking at how do you do this. You have to do your best, make smart decisions, and then act. You won't get it right every time. But failure doesn't mean it didn't work. I believe there's success, there's failure, and there's an education. And failure is the failure to get an education out of what didn't work.
Yeah, now obviously if we're with doctors, we would like to get it right. But in most businesses, done is more profitable than perfect. I talk to a lot of speakers, authors, trainers, and experts and consultants. They have a book and they tell me about their book every time we meet. And I'm like, when are you going to get your book done? Well, I'm working on it. I'm like, do you really care about helping people? Yeah, I love helping people. Well, then get your damn book done, right? I mean, it's like done's more profitable than perfect. And I think that I know we've all struggled at some point in our lives with imposter syndrome. Are we good enough? Are we smart enough? Why should we do this when everybody else does it? But I think we also give too much credit to other people, and we worry about what other people are thinking when they're really not even thinking about us at all. I used to manage Les Brown, who was a very famous motivational speaker. I managed him for 3 years. Back when he was married to Gladys Knight, I took his business from $1 million to $3 million in 6 months. And, Les used to say, how old would you be if you didn't know how old you were? And then he would say, something like, if you're worried about other people, 80% don't care what's going on in your life, and 20% just want you to fail. So it's like, why worry about things you can't control? Focus on what you can control, which is your attitude, your allocation of time, and your actions that you take. And so I love that people are tuning in. I hope they like and subscribe to these episodes that we do on Fortify Live. We're live every week on 11 a.m. Central Time. And so I'm just curious, now that we know about lessons, you're really strong about exit strategies. What can you say to business owners that are looking when they might be planning a sale of their business?
Oh my goodness. First I would say, get my book, Tips and Traps, Maximizing Your Wealth.
And it's on Amazon, right?
It's on Amazon, and it's essentially a book that gives you guidance for selling your business. It's not a do-it-yourself book. I have so many clients who've gone through this, and business brokers, what they say is for their interest and their benefit, not for the benefit of the person selling the business. Not to say that there aren't good ones out there. I wrote a book based on the experiences that my clients had, and I'd be happy to share that with anybody. I think the single biggest thing is psychological. Assuming you've got a good team, you got to have a good team. You got to have a good runway. You got to plan this out. But I think the biggest mistake people make is you used the word already, mindset. they don't realize that being king of the hill, even if it's a little hill, is very different from being anyone else. And when they sell out business, that's going away.
Yep.
That relevance is going with it. There's a lot of studies that suggest that women handle this much better than men do. But if you're a guy and you're selling your business, you better have a real good plan B. If not, maybe you need to think about, well, how do I make it a self-running company that I can stay involved with? Or what are my other alternatives? But if you're sick of it or the timing's perfect, have a good plan B, or you're going to go crazy in retirement.
Yeah, I think it's true. I mean, I know that, I always tell people, I work with a lot of speakers, authors, trainers, and experts, and I always tell people, don't tie your delivery method to your identity. Like for me, yes, I'm a keynote speaker and I speak at conferences, but I want to be known as the business growth expert. Speaking is just a delivery method. Training, consulting, workshops, master classes, those are just packaging. But my identity comes from being able to bridge the gap between someone's value proposition and their ideal client. That's where I really enjoy spending my time. I'm an advisor to several startups and brands. I sit on association boards and private companies. Full disclosure, there's nothing that we're talking about in this episode giving you legal or financial advice. This is strictly for educational and informational and entertainment purposes only. I just have to put the disclaimer in there. We're not offering you any opportunity to buy or sell any business. But back to the point, okay, so don't tie your identity to the delivery method. So if you are thinking about exiting, get Paul's book. If you're listening to the audio podcast, again, this is Paul Carroll. He's the founder and CEO of, I say Avion Wealth. Is it Avion Wealth or how are you?
Avion Wealth.
Okay, I've been pronouncing it wrong for 5 years. Okay, great, Paul.
Yeah.
I always, because you're a pilot and I've flown in your plane before, so I just thought it was, Avion like the plane, but I get it. All right. So any closing thoughts you have for our guests? Anything you want to, nuggets of wisdom that I didn't get to ask you about?
Well, I think there's a saying I heard once, and that is the people who got you where you are not going to get you where you're going. And that has been one of the more painful lessons that I've learned. If you're familiar with EOS and Gino Wickman's book, Traction, you might know there's a term called a visionary and an integrator. I'm very much the visionary. Get yourself a great integrator. I have tried 3 times, maybe 4 over the last 8 years, and only the latest attempt succeeded. But I'm glad I never quit because I have a world-class integrator and it's supercharged what I'm able to do. So having someone who can run the business while you grow the business, while you lead it, is essential for the second level of your growth.
Yeah, I'm definitely one of the visionaries too. And that's a great book. Also, remember the foundation, which is in business, people are good at one of 3 things: marketing and sales, leadership and management and finance, or delivering the service. They're a practitioner, a plumber, or HVAC, something. They deliver the service. Never in business are you good at all 3. So if you're really the visionary person, you got to get an integrator. If you're a systems person, you might be stuck in systems. And like you said, paralysis by analysis, instead of actually looking at, okay, what other ideas? What are we thinking about? There's a great book by a good friend of mine, Daniel Burris, called Flash Foresight. And he's got another one called The Anticipatory Organization. Those 2 books help people see what they don't see. And one of his tips is, if you have a problem, what would happen if you skipped it, right? Like, instead of trying to solve the problem, what if you just didn't spend any effort on it and you went to the next thing? And there's a lot of other tips. But again, that goes back to what Paul said when he first joined this episode, which is be a vivacious learner, be a continual learner. Now with AI and ChatGPT, you can learn, you can use custom GPTs, you can learn. There's no excuses, because the way the world is now, we have access to all this information on our phones, on our assistants. And I won't say Alexa and Google, because otherwise all the devices are going to go off that are listening. But certainly you want to be an open-minded and critical thinker. So Paul, any closing thoughts? And then we'll wrap up the episode.
Yeah, I think ChatGPT and AI is changing the world.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, though. One of the key quotes I've heard Peter Diamandis say, and I love it, is AI is not coming for your job. The guy who knows how to use AI is coming for your job. We use it extensively in our business. my depth and breadth of reading over my lifetime enables me to identify when AI is going off the reservation. I mean, it always sounds convincing. It's the next new thing. It's nothing to be afraid of, but it's that curiosity, that constant learning. It's an essential component to future business success.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for tuning in to Fortify Live, where we're all about accelerating your business growth. Until next time, keep innovating, keep growing, and keep fortifying your success. Thanks so much, Paul.
Thank you. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for tuning in to Fortify Live. Make sure to like, comment, and share this episode on your favorite social media platform. And don't forget to subscribe to the Business Growth Show podcast, available wherever you get your podcast streaming fix. We air weekly at 11 a.m. Central Time. So until next week, keep pushing the boundaries and never stop growing.